Well, good evening, everybody. This is Dave Briglio with Making the Play, and we have a very special episode tonight. Tonight we're going to have on Amy. I'm already getting a little bit choked up on this one. Hafley. Amy Hafley and Monica Drake are going to be on the show tonight, and we're going to be talking about teen suicide prevention, awareness. And this builds off a previous show where we had Jen Fraser, author of Teaching Bullies, where she talked about how sometimes the teacher and the coach are the bully and how traumatic it can be and the neuroscience behind it, about it literally affects the brain. And also on her with that show was Charles Chuck Bichon, who has created an app to help with that, the Athlete Guardian, which is a way, again, for those people under that type of trauma to be able to report it safely and to resolve a problem. And the story we're going to be talking about here tonight is it's a good one. It's got it's not a happy beginning in terms of a young woman by the name of Megan Abbott completed suicide. And we're going to talk about her story and how her community and her school has come up with the 13 Reasons Why Not program. So with that, again, I'm very honored and very pleased to have on the show tonight Amy Hafley and Monica Drake. Ladies, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, Dave.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think, again, we've got a very strong response on social media. I've been contacted by a number of people wanting to do similar programs, and we definitely will have the lines open and be happy to speak with whoever during the show that wants to share, learn a bit, because that's what we're trying to do here. It's not just awareness. It is how to move into some meaningful action to make some differences. And I'd like to ask Monica, who, again, the original story in it has been on, correct me, ladies, if it's been on NPR Radio, ABC. What show was it on ABC as well? It was covered?
Nightline.
On Nightline.
Nightline. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this all, I think, had been escalating in up to the last month or so. When was your original story dateline? The date of your original story, Monica.
Oh, it was 3 weeks ago, so it was May 4th was the original story.
And I came across that one through a friend locally. She had posted it. She said, hey, this is, as a parent, because those who aren't familiar, the Netflix series based on the book, 13 Reasons Why, this was a twist on it. And she thought it was a tremendous response. And as soon as I looked at what it was and saw what was happening in Oxford High School in Michigan, I emailed you, Monica, and the dean of the school. Pam Fine is not with us, but we'll be able to describe the program. It's a fantastic program. So maybe you could give us a little bit of a summary, I guess, the finer points of the story, which you uncovered, and again, you're part of the community, and how you explained what happened.
Yeah, so I'm from Oxford, and I met Pam Fine, the dean of Oxford High School. I met her in 2012 because in Oxford and Lake Orion schools, 4 members of the schools lost their lives to suicide just within that winter. So that's when I first met her, because that's the schools where she works. And so I met her through that because she was the one I talked to. And then she contacted me about this story. She wanted us to be the first ones to write about it. And what it was so it was a secret project that she did with her leadership class, where she, as a response to the show 13 Reasons Why, they wanted to have a student for 13 days, a different student for 13 days, tell a reason why not. So they would talk about something difficult that happened in their life. So just like the show in 13 Reasons Why, the main character has these 13 tapes where she gives reasons why she wants to die. And so this is the opposite. They give her something hard that happened to them, and then at the end they'll thank a student in their class for giving them a reason to live and for making them not do it. So it was really personal things that these students would share, and they shared it over the PA system during the morning announcements. So the first girl who did it, nobody knew that this was happening. So the morning announcements came. Everybody was silent. They were waiting for the normal morning announcements. And then they hear this girl talking about how she was emotionally abused by her ex-boyfriend. And then she thanked a student for helping her get through it. And just, no one was expecting it. And then so she was in her leadership class. And then Pam kept getting all these letters from students who wanted to share their own story. So it was remarkable what it did.
And as I read through the article, it talked about the response, which, again, as you mentioned, nobody was expecting it. And Pam also describes that she did not simply get 13 people lined up ready to go. In fact, I think it started with one brave person, and then I believe also a teacher were the first two to keep it moving. And was it after that the momentum built? Because it sounds like there was more than enough people who suddenly were coming forward that wanted to tell their story.
Yeah, I think it was right after the first girl. Her name's Riley Junty. And then right after her, it was the coach of the basketball team actually did it. And right after that, that's when it started getting, everybody wanted to do it. And then it was it blew up on the media. So there was that. But I think people were most surprised about the basketball player, because he was really popular. So he was the captain of the basketball team. They didn't realize that even he was going through stuff like this.
And that's the main thing here is that you don't know, and that's what. Again, I can say that now only because of what you all have been telling me over the last few weeks, and you start to think about it, and you see things like this that you don't know what people are going through. And I've got a friend listening right now with her daughter. I was mentioning before that as I was telling her about this, it was actually a different offshoot. She and I were getting some help from Jen Fraser and Charles Deshawn about a bullying incident that my friend was trying to help with in her community for someone else. And then as I mentioned what was going on with this episode, I shared it with her. She said, well, it goes on more than you know, even in, my family. And she may be calling in later to talk and to share. That's one of those situations where they're very fortunate to have become aware of it very early and to do something about that type of trauma that can lead to the thoughts of suicide. We talked a little bit about the program. We can come back to some of the details, but right now I wanted to, Andy, I wanted to see if you'd like to tell us a little bit about Megan.
Okay, so Megan was 15 when she completed suicide. She had some struggles that she had to go through. She made some mistakes that she was not proud of, and unfortunately, those mistakes were not forgiven by herself and by some of her peers. So there was one Facebook message that we didn't find out about until after she was found, where she was seeking to help out a young man who she thought, just needed a friend. So she contacted a female that she thought was a friend, but it turns out this wasn't so much of a friend because basically she just kind of put her down for trying to help somebody else because of some mistakes that she'd made in the past. So that was very disheartening to Megan. And Megan was the type of girl who she would do anything for anybody. She'd forget to take care of herself, but didn't seem to stop a beat to take care of somebody else. And so that was like a strength, but yet a weakness for her as well. But she was very, very kind, very loving, open-hearted. I could say a lot of wonderful things about her. She loved music. She loved helping elderly people, which, I'm very proud of her for that. She was almost like my spitting image. We looked a lot alike. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for her, but so
did she play guitar?
Go ahead.
Did
she
play
did.
guitar?
She did play guitar. She had a beautiful pink sparkly guitar that was like her best friend almost. that guitar meant the world to her. So we've done things around our house regarding that pink guitar to show her that we still have those memories of her. But yeah, she definitely did play the pink guitar. That wasn't her first, but that was her favorite. And she loved pink and she loved Hello Kitty. I don't know what else to say at this moment. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, one is to recap for those who may be just joining, and we will have the line open later if you want to call in, but this is a program that was not just about the issue of suicide that the community had gone through, but, it was, Megan was part of what had moved it to the next level with Pam. And I'll note, just reading some of the notes that Pam had sent to me, and Pam, by the way, is she's handling graduation tonight, so she would have been here otherwise. But she talks about how they had done a survey in 2011, a 40-question survey, and again in 2016, just trying to figure out about bullying incidents because, again, being one of the triggers that can lead to mental illness of sorts and the depression that can lead to suicide. And she talks about how just the awareness they saw that actually there was a reduction in the bullying incidents. But here are some things she noted that for those teachers that may be out there or parents trying to figure out how to convey some information to their schools, these are some things I would not have expected. She mentioned that bullies and victims are not brought together so the bully can apologize in front of an adult. And that does actually make a lot of sense because I think we all know that there's nothing sincere in a setting like that. There's really nothing, no bridges are being mended. It's probably more retaliation brewing. So she talked about creating a safe environment for the victim, ways to report it. And we talked earlier about, and again, I'll talk about Athlete Guardian. It's an app that allows reports to be sent to a completely encrypted third party that just then forwards it to the school. So it's untraceable. So that's one of the things that's out there. But other strategies that Pam talked about was the fact that even the teachers can't tell all the details, so they used a lot of cameras. And there was a location and a time, and Pam was taking the time to really find out the incidences, but then would interview an entire class, even when they know who it was, which is, again, that's a lot of training that Pam's gone through. Am I correct with that, Monica? This is not something she's just picked up on her own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she was trained in the Alveus bully prevention. It was, let me see what it was called. Yeah, the Alveus Bully Prevention Program, which is the most widely used program of its kind. And she was one of the first educators in the state to be trained in that. So that's why she was first hired. She started this program called Bully Busters. And that happened when she first came to Oxford High School.
And what year was that?
I think it was 2012. Amy,
okay.
Do you know?
I can't remember, but I want to agree with you that I think it was 2012 as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. So this is something that has been in the making for some time. It's been a big part of the community.
And she was doing it in nearby. She was doing it at a nearby school before that. So even before 2012, she was doing it, the bully prevention.
And excuse me. Maybe what I wanted to, another thing I wanted to ask you was, we've talked about this, and you mentioned that if the program had been there, it would have helped Megan for sure. Are you able to tell us a little about Morgan's role with the 13 Reasons?
Yeah, with the 13 Reasons Why Not project?
Yeah. Yeah, this is it's a very special part of the story, I think.
Yes, since Morgan and Megan they had their love-hate relationship like any sister do. So, of course, when she lost her sister, it was a big deal for her, and we've always looked for ways to help with that healing process and grief. Well, I think when the 13 Reasons Why Not project came in, I think this is where Morgan got to be the voice for her sister. She was able to do a tape and to basically, since Megan wasn't here in person, though we really believe she's here in spirit, but not in person, to be able to tell her story, Morgan was basically there to do the story for her. And Morgan thanked everyone that, like the police, there was one special individual in our paramedics team. He was always a great help with Megan, so couldn't thank anybody individually, but she definitely thanked that team, the teachers, the staff. She wanted to thank Pam Fine because Pam was very close to Megan before Megan completed her suicide. So that's also why this project was dear to Pam and why Megan was brought up into it. So Morgan was able to thank all these people that helped Megan and helped all of us get through losing her. And I think for Morgan, that meant a great big deal. And I think for the school, too. I guess Morgan tells me that afterwards, the response that she received was just amazing. She lost track of how many hugs she got that day. But both Morgan and I believe that if this project could have happened 4 years ago, Megan could have seen that she wasn't alone in this battle, that, everyone has their own battles that they go through, and we really believe that we could still possibly had more days with Megan had we just had this project just 4 years before now.
Do you think, I've got, my distant observations on this, but do you think that there's a shame, a stigma of wanting to bring it out, to, that I'm having problems, that maybe the problems she was feeling were a reflection on, again, another inferiority? Is that a stretch, or do you think that may be something that may have made it harder, on her to get through her time? I know we don't have a program like 13 Reasons Why Not, but do you have any insights or suspicions on what she was thinking?
I think for her, it was definitely not being able to speak, not people understanding that she was trying to do what was right. She was trying to fight everything and just let people know she was a good person and that she had these struggles, and she couldn't talk about her struggles. It was almost like if you did anything wrong, you were shamed right away. I think if she would have just been able to speak how she truly felt, it would have made a whole lot of difference, and people, I think, would have understood her better had they just been able to just stop judging and just listen. And that's one of the big things that we focus on, is just don't judge. Everyone has their own journeys that they're going to go through.
And that's much easier said than done, because it's human nature to do it. So, but we dismiss it pretty easily. We tell ourselves, get some thicker skin, things like that, which in some cases, depending on the issue, there is some of that. But I want to read something from Jen Fraser that she sent to me, because I think this is very pertinent to something I would not have known here. She had talked on the bullying side about how the trauma that does get inflicted from that abuse, that emotional abuse from, someone that's doing that to you, that it does in fact change the brain, the way the brain works. But she wanted to, I'm going to read this right from her email. The message I'd really like to get out to kids is that the reason they feel suicidal is partially because of the bullying, but partially because of the brain changes they're undergoing. One of the parts of the brain that's under massive intensive development at that part of their life is what's referred to as the social brain. And I think we can all relate to. She says that this is why teens become so self-conscious and so hyper-aware of anyone else's gesture, word, glance, whatever it may be. And I think we can all relate to that. That's what we say, oh, that's all part of growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little bit, when it's literally about spilt milk, yes, that's what that's about, when you feel like a fool. But she mentions if we could get kids to understand that they're going through a brain phase. Again, this is not a silly teenager thing. This is not a girl thing. This is not a guy that's not being tough enough. They're going through a brain phase. There is a change. That part of their brain that handles that type of input and the emotional response isn't done developing. And again, easier said than done, but to get them to realize that they need to not listen to that part of the brain, believe it or not, at that time, and have some calming strategies. And I think right now, mindfulness, meditating is on the rise with yoga. And I'm afraid it will, get a trendy kind of thing. But okay, yeah, you do your breathing thing over there, Moonbeam. If that's what you need. But she's getting into the neuroscience. This isn't about alternative philosophies. This is, in fact, and I've Dr. Bessel van der Kolk has written an entire book on this. He's in Boston University that really talks about, it's called The Body Keeps the Score is the name of his book. It is excellent. And it talks about how the body, it knows what it's going through, and it's going to change, and it's going to adapt under the circumstances the best that it can. If it's not developed, like Jen is saying here, these kids don't have a chance. They don't have a choice. It is simply not that they didn't handle it appropriately. So that I wanted to make sure that you knew, Amy. I don't know if you heard such things before.
I have, actually.
Yeah, and that's why. Is there anything else? Maybe again, I'm so glad you called me a couple days ago. We got to talk, and we've been taking turns trying to figure out which one of us was more nervous about talking about this, and the other one always seems to be more upbeat, and then keeps saying, "But I'm the one that's nervous." What have you? Is there anything on that you'd like to add for just parents? I mean, these are things that I want to know when I start looking at my kids and wondering what they're going through.
Well, here's something that I'd like to add that I've not actually said anything about yet because I just learned it on my own. One of the things that I think when our children come home with an issue, one thing I don't think we talk about is the possibility of bullying even. My daughter, Morgan, just made a mistake at school, and, there was some punishment behind it, and, she was really sorry for it. But as I'm sitting here grounding her, giving her the third degree, doing what a mom's supposed to do, I sat back and I'm like, wait a minute. There's an issue here that I haven't even addressed yet, and what are her classmates going to do to her? What are they going to say to her? So then my focus now came to her was, hey, listen, if by any chance you had anything negative said to you, this is the game plan. And we sat down and I let her know it is not okay for anybody to hurt you verbally, mentally, anything like that. Just anybody calls you a name, you let me know. We'll take it to the school. We'll put a stop to it right away. And it's sad that I had to have that conversation, but I think that's almost where we need to go now. And I think it's a missed conversation with our kids. It's just, they screwed up. You ground them, do what you got to do, and try to teach them the right way. But now I think in today's society, some of that bullying comes where they take those mistakes and they throw them on those kids and they tease them for it. And we need to start being proactive rather than reactive, I guess is what I'm trying to say with that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, kids are mean. Other kids are really mean. So it's not just so it's with them developing, like you were saying, but on top of going through that and then having to deal with kids being mean on top of it.
Mhm.
Well, keep in mind also that one of the reasons that kids as well as adults are mean is because they're in a bad place. It is the downward spiral. So it doesn't excuse it, but that is what Jen's talking about here, is that somewhere every kid that's being nasty took a kick previously and they didn't know what to do except give it back. And it doesn't excuse, that's what we're dealing with. So it's not an excuse, but I definitely think that, a little bit of empathy, because it's not round up the nasty people and the rest of us will be okay. It really is, knowing there's a difference between disciplining to teach a lesson and then just piling on shame because, well, that's, I guess, what we're supposed to do because there's no other excuse for that kid's behavior or, or whatever it may be. Let me also read another story here, and hopefully Donovan Dreyer, if you're listening, feel free to call in. Definitely, he is out in Windsor, Colorado, and he said to me in an email, and that's actually this also. And again, I want to thank Elena Estinol, a guest from a couple weeks ago, who is out in Colorado, is a fantastic life coach. Among other talents that she has, sports psychologist and mentor. She got me in connection with Donovan. He writes, when I heard of this initiative, the 13 Reasons Why Not, in early May, I immediately set up to facilitate a conversation here in Windsor, Colorado, to jump on board with finding reasons why not to commit suicide. A few people attended, but I taught them a powerful practical tool that reveals the inner state of teens, because the process that put together was visual. And he says the innovation for having this came from suicides of 3 boys in a 2-week span where I served as school counselor. And he also is originally from Michigan. So your story definitely touched him, and he sprang into action immediately, he said. And again, not many attended, but he's got the ball rolling. And I think that that's something that, in Megan's memory here, good things are happening. Good things.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you say you've heard of other schools that are going to or want to start doing this too?
One in New York, I believe.
Oh, really?
There's one in New York, I believe, that's actually already starting to implement it, is what Dylan, he's one of our 13 students, Dylan Koss. He's the one that alerted us to that information. So there's already implementation going on. I know, right?
Yeah, wow.
I was so excited that to hear that's great. I really hope. But like Pam said too, and even our principal, Todd Dunkley, because I talked to him about it, when implementing this project, one of the things they have to make sure is they have a good foundation of bully bustering going on in there to make sure that these kids are safe to be able to implement it. So that's a big piece of it, is the whole Bully Buster program. I think our school was in a safe place to be able to pull this project off.
Because, and that's the other part of the initial response I was reading about was that I think after one particular discussion that had to do with body image, the girls were writing on the mirror just beautiful messages to each other with lipstick and other things like that.
Yep.
Now, actually, this might be a good time. I've got some callers coming in here right now, so why don't we take a few? You're all right with that? So
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So area code 970. This is Dave with Amy and Monica. Tell us who you are and what you'd like to share.
Yeah, hi, this is Donovan. So thanks,
hey, Donovan,
thanks,
excellent.
Dave.
You did hear us.
Yeah, Amy, I'm just sorry for you and your family and the Oxford community, for starters.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm originally from Michigan myself, but I've been out here in Colorado since 2016, and it was the very first day of Thanksgiving vacation in 2014 that I got a call, and the other 3 counselors in our building were out, and we had a student take his life, and that was the second in 2 weeks at our school. and I had, I think, 8 or 10 parents and kids circled up, and we were just grieving, and I was helping them through it. And another staff member came up and whispered in my ear that somebody was in the hospital and probably not going to make it, and it was also suicide. And for a second there, it was so surreal. I thought, did they just tell me that we've been here by mistake today? Like they didn't confirm the suicide? And that wasn't the case. It was actually the third in 2 weeks, and those second two were within 24 hours of each other. And I had to break that news to our high school community at Frederick right then and there, after we were already circled up from another kid from earlier in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
So that's my story as you know, from the school counseling perspective. And I think it's been over 10 now in my career, which is, it's sad that I can not be sure about the count at this point of a 16-year career.
Oh my.
Wow, 10 and 16 years.
That's just too many.
Yeah.
And Donovan, you mentioned that.
So yeah, go ahead, Dave. Yeah, I guess I could continue on a little bit. Yeah, So for me, I didn't want it to happen in vain. So I know things happen in the news, and that's one thing. But when it happened in my backyard, I didn't, I don't know about destiny or fate or anything like that, but I decided to make it matter. I didn't want those kids to go in vain. And I just literally asked aloud or to myself in private at one time, what is it that I need to glean from this? What do I need to learn so that this doesn't happen in vain? And it was just a matter of seconds where it came through that I needed to see what teenagers hide. I think especially boys. It might have been, you need to see what boys keep hidden, was a message that came like lightning quick. And to make a long story short, I've been working on this development for 3 years now, but right around the same time as the movie Inside Out was being created so that Disney could show the inside of the character Riley, I actually worked on a system that allows us to see inside of any teenager in the world. And when you look at the scenario of what to do, I've basically broken down the entire inner world into 3 levels, and I've made mindfulness into a visual that allows us to know exactly what action to take, depending on which of those 3 levels a young person or anybody really is in, so that not only do we have a gauge on where they are internally, and we get a sense of that mindfulness, but we actually have an exact act to take.
Wow. Donovan, would you, after the show is over, would you please email me some links to some of that information? Because what I'm going to do after the show here is tweet out and put on Facebook and some other locations. I'll put the information out there because, again, the purpose here is to get people not just connected with stories, but with actions they can take that are going to make a difference. So I really, really appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, I've got an Instagram, Donovan.Dreyer, where around last Thanksgiving I got pretty active with that. I've done other things on social media, but really I've taken a real focus lately with making this easier to understand. So there's a number of posts there that are super, super helpful to make it easy, and I've got a number of videos. So I'd be happy to share those links. But it's been a powerful journey to develop the tool.
Oh, good. And thank you for calling in. And I really, again, appreciate sending me the email, being so responsive. And we'll definitely get people connected with some of the good work that you're doing, Donovan. Thank you very much.
All right, Dave, Monica, Amy, take care.
Have a good evening, Donovan.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to try another caller here. Area code 202. Are you on the air?
Yes. Hi, it's Sue Rosenstock with You Matter.
Ah, yes, another one of the people that called in. I hadn't quite got to your story. Sue, meet Amy, and meet Monica.
Hey,
nice
Sue.
to meet you.
Please tell them a little about your story here, and again, an event that's going on. But please tell them about your story and what you all are trying to do.
Sure. May 20th, 2013 was every parent's worst nightmare. My son took his life after just 4 months of having an injury due to basketball, and a coach who didn't believe he was injured, ended up needing surgery, didn't feel he could go back to his team. He didn't want to go back and be on that team with the coach, and lost his identity as a 16-year-old sophomore varsity athlete. And 4 months after his surgery, he was gone. And as I've heard you speak a number of times on this too, is, the influences of the bullying from coaches to children versus children to children. And so what we try to do with You Matter is, this is obviously something that was a very negative in everybody's life, but we've turned it into making Evan's life be for a positive movement. And that positive movement is to create programs where the Positive Coaching Alliance is involved, bringing that to our region, putting in the only evidence-based, peer-led, proven effective suicide prevention program in the nation to 10 schools in our area, which is the first time it's been brought to the Mid-Atlantic region. And as well, we are founding members of the Campaign to Change Direction in Mental Health. And the campaign, which I'd like to share with everybody, it was launched in March of 2015. And it came out of the Sandy Hook shootings. And there was the first White House Summit on Mental Health. And out of that summit came a committee that was charged with coming up with a public health campaign about mental health. Since we could be standing in a room, we've talked about this, with someone who's clenching their, chest and short of breath, we know they're having a heart attack, or could possibly be having a heart attack or a stroke, because we've been taught those 5 signs. This public health campaign is exactly the same thing for mental health. There are 5 signs that have been identified as emotional suffering. And the idea is, if you see these 5 signs in yourself or someone else, you want to reach out, you want to connect, you want to inspire hope and offer help. And the 5 signs are personality changing, agitation, withdrawal, poor self-care, and hopelessness. And there is a strong movement that we have now gone internationally with this whole campaign. And I would encourage everybody to go to changedirection.org, where you can find resources. We've put posters of these 5 signs into high schools all across our county. We pledged to educate 52,000 students within 5 years, and we educated over 70,000 in 6 months.
Wow.
So we are...
Mm-hmm. Could you repeat that again for everybody? What the goal was and what the reality was?
Oh, well, we thought we would educate 52,000 people in 5 years, and we educated 70,000 high school students within 6 months.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's,
and so
that's over 10 times more than you anticipated.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
I can do math. That's the engineering side of me, but that's amazing. Wow.
And what's happened is that, we've been able to take Evan's life and, this wonderful, known as effervescent Evan, who never took a medicine in his life or was sad or sick a day in his life, just having something traumatic happen, which it often can trigger something in mental health, and going downhill that fast, that his life has now been turned around to create a positive for kids. So it actually happened. The reason the movement You Matter, which is spelled UMTTR.org, came to me because after Evan passed away, it was such a shock to so many of these kids that 4 of them, different kids at different times, approached me and asked if they could do a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, raise funds for teen suicide prevention, awareness, and training. And I said, gee, I should get these 4 kids together. And these 4 kids came together, and he died May 20th. By July 4th, we had a website launched, and September 15th, we had our first 3-on-3 basketball tournament where 300 kids came out to play, and we raised over $25,000.
Wow.
And
wow.
that is the
That's
tournament
awesome.
that we're – thank you. And this is the tournament that we're having on Sunday now. Again, this is our 4th annual tournament. And
So this
we hope
Sunday?
to be – yep.
Mm-hmm.
At Walt Whitman High School in Bethesda, Maryland. And there's 3-on-3 basketball. There'll be celebrities walking around. There'll be a silent auction with really cool stuff. And there are workshops on positive coaching as well as decision-making and healthy dating. So we have something for everybody. The players in the tournament want to play basketball 3-on-3. That's from middle school age all the way up to an over 50 category. So there's really something for everybody there.
Yeah, and Sue, I'm sorry. Positive Coaching Alliance was my connection to you. I had reached out to a number of people who've been on the show so far and said, hey, here's a very special topic. I have a feeling there'll be some people that get in contact. So Jake Wald at PCA he connected with Susan, and he immediately said, hey, Dave, can you do some PCA training for them this weekend? And unfortunately, I'm traveling, but honestly, I really wish I could have, because just seeing how people get together like this, I would have been just very, very proud to have been part of your activities this weekend. So I apologize, but I know it's going to go very well for you.
Well, thank you. And if you're in the area, you can come to other things we have.
Oh, I am in there. That's what I'm saying. I'm in Baltimore here, so you and I will definitely let's stay in contact.
Great.
Sue, is there anything else? I really appreciate you adding a lot more to the conversation than I could have by reading your email, because this is what we want to know people to know about the programs in their area, practitioners they can contact to figure out steps forward. And thank you so much for taking the time and joining us tonight.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for the bravery. And part of what we hope to do by communicating, educating, and motivating people to be in a positive way is to remove the messages of shock, trauma, and sadness and replace those with help, hope, and strength. And building resilience in these teenagers and these young adults is what we really do. And it's all done by kids for kids. I don't think I got that message out. This is all done by them. They are my boss. And
that's so neat.
That's what's the power of the movement. And when 13 Reasons Why Not came out, we were all over that as being the way to go, because, again, we don't want to have the shock, trauma, and sadness. We want the messages of hope, help, and strength.
Well, Susan, I think those are perfect words to let you go. I'm going to get to one more caller here, but thank you so much, because this is not easy stuff to talk about. That's why I haven't until I've gotten connected with some people who have kind of helped me see the good in getting involved. So thank you, Susan, and have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, we're going to go with another caller here. We've got a caller at area code 904. Can you hear us, area code 904?
Yes.
I'm thinking they might be on mute here, so I'm going to just hold for a little second. We can bring it back.
Yes.
They came back? Hold on a second here. Hello, area code 904?
Yes, thank you for your powerful show this evening.
And I'm playing a little bit here because I know who this is. This is my good friend Kristen.
Thank you so much. I've got 2 questions for you, and just what is your advice for parents who start seeing signs of depression or start having concerns about potential suicide in their children? And then 2, have you found the shortage of resources for teens by medical professionals, and what advice do you have parents?
Is that question for me?
Yes. Yes. Anything you can give us is great.
For parents, I think when you first find out, or if you even see the signs, don't hesitate to act immediately, but be careful of your reaction. The reaction is very important, especially with teens. Sometimes if you react the wrong way, if you're too obsessive over it or too mulling them, they will tend to retreat back and not be as open. So you really want to make sure that you're building that healthy relationship so they will continue to talk and let them know that they're safe. But definitely listen to what they have to say. I don't suggest trying to minimize their problems for them, because to them it is big, even though to us it might be minor. And then ask for suggestions. How can I help you? Because sometimes, like I've always said, what might work for me might not work for somebody else. So to get their input on, hey, how can I help? And they'll let you know if they do know that this is what I need help with. That opens up that conversation, and that lets them know too that you're really truly there to help them. But the most foremost is try to react in a way, but in a very calm and not so overbearing, reactive manner, and definitely start looking at getting counseling. So that they can talk, because sometimes talking to a stranger is a lot easier than talking to a parent. And don't take it personal if they can't talk to you. It's just so much easier. And your most important goal is to get them what they need. And what was the second part? I'm sorry.
The second one was, I've been surprised in talking to people about how few psychiatrists there are out there to treat teens, and how difficult it may be to get in with them. And I guess I was just so surprised when I talked to people that I thought that resource would be available to a lot of people. And the reality is it can be very challenging to get appropriate treatment.
It is. I went through that struggle myself. One of the things that I learned about later on that I wish we could have learned about a little bit sooner was this program called dialectical behavior therapy. It is very expensive. It's a 6-week program that's very intensive. It's not one that I could get her into right away, but I was willing to sell everything that I had, including my car, because insurance was the runaround. So insurance is a major block. And then, of course, getting them in an appointment. I even see a counselor right now just to help with the whole grieving process and to make sure I'm in the right steps that I need to be in my life. And it's still hard for somebody who's not really needing a counselor to get in. So it's struggling. It's frustrating. But don't let it deter you. Keep looking. And the other thing, too, that is very important is if your child is not okay with who this counselor is, then find them somebody else. Because it's not going to do you or the child or your child any good if they're just sitting here in front of somebody and just feeding them a line of just whatever they want to hear. You want to make sure that there's a relationship being built between the counselor and the child. But here's also another saying I live by, too, is don't just rely on the counselors. It takes a village to raise a child. Get other people involved to get in and help and talk. I've opened myself up to other teens in our community to say, hey, if you can't talk to somebody, come talk to me. I'll listen. I've heard a lot. I've actually had over a dozen teens come and just tell me, and they just get stuff off their chest. And sometimes that's all they needed. So it builds a support group for them, especially because a counselor cannot be there 24/7. So having that big support group with family, friends, neighbors, just around your child, that helps a lot. And the more the merrier.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. It's really important to people to hear this story and know that there's hope and resources out there.
Yes, and I'm sure there's a lot more resources that I don't even know about because I'm still learning it all. But just keep asking and keep looking, because what does it hurt? You'll just find more.
Thank you to you, and thank you to Dave.
Thanks
a lot, Kristen. All right. Have a good evening. what I definitely would like to make sure, again, let everyone know that when we're done with this, let's gather a few bits of information, maybe some, again, places for people to look, a little more than a trail of breadcrumbs, but those are some things definitely when the show is over. I'll post those things on Twitter and some other locations. You mentioned your first question, which was to not take things too lightly. And as a parent, that's our first reaction. If you're not bleeding or something's on fire, it's not that big a deal. Sometimes the mantra that we'll say. And most of the time that really is it. When something spills or, it's truly domestic stuff around the house, you can't find matching socks and, they're so worried about what somebody's going to think. You're right. It's not a big deal. But I will, we've got just enough time here. I'll share with you where I think, again, the more I get exposed to people, the more I kind of see where it does matter even in the most mundane situations. So at 6:20 tonight here, I get a call from my daughter who just went off to practice. She's a teen driver, very good driver, and based on the shortness of breath and the sobbing, I could tell that somewhere fenders and bumpers were hitting, which, just I've told them, I said, that's why you have the car that you have, girls. I said, it'll get fixed. We have insurance. And I caught up with her, and everything was fine. It was probably, $50 worth of, honestly, damage. In fact, the man that was there, nice older gentleman, was just saying, she was so worried. I told her not to worry about it. But here's what did happen, because I didn't understand why she was so upset over literally a whole lot of nothing. The embarrassment, what was it? Well, what started this little fender bender was she was traveling down a 4-lane road, maybe 40 miles an hour. Someone was racing up on her from behind. Somebody just felt that apparently in traffic, they should all be going faster. And I doubt that they knew that there was, a teenage girl driving, but a very big man decided that he and his big car were going to ride up on her, swerve, rev the engine, while they're approaching a left turn, try and go around her and things like that. And it scared her. And that is, again, some of the things I've learned. Something as simple as that is your brain goes into fight or flight. You can freeze. You can overreact. Those are all the things that are going to happen. That's a real thing. Something like out of a movie, I'm sure is what she thought it was, that somebody was just out to get her. And, excuse me, so she actually tried to get out of the person's way and clipped, like I say, just tap bumpers. And then in the middle of traffic, decided she would get around them, to pull off the road. But this person who had scared her into doing that, it wasn't enough. He drove around all of them, drove into traffic, the other lane, drove in front of her, stopped the car, got out and yelled at her and said, "You can't leave the scene." It wasn't his car that was in the accident. He was actually the trigger for all of it, if you will. I mean, it was her mistake, no big deal. The guy that got hit could have cared less. He's like, this is no big deal. We'll take care of it. But this man was yelling at her, telling her that she was trying to leave the scene. You can't do that. And just really tearing her up. And that's when I understood why she then, I had to take her through, almost a little bit of what Donovan was talking about, a way to kind of calm down. Because as she was just reliving it, she was hyperventilating. And we were parked off to the side. The other man had already left, said, "Don't worry about it. This is no problem. I'm not mad." He said, "I'm sorry that man upset you." He was comforting her, but her just reliving that. And this is minor stuff, fender benders. But I saw that she was having trouble breathing. It was hitting her that hard. Because as Jen Fraser said, that part of her brain is not established. It's not ready for that.
And it was the first time she's ever experienced something like that.
Yes, right. And I actually did call the police just because I assumed that, we got to make a report. And they said, you didn't. But I'm glad because I said, well, tell about what the guy did to you. And, and the policeman said, yeah, you know what? You did everything right. You're okay. And that was that other voice, which was the other reason I just said, you know what? I'm not going to use a policeman's time frivolously here, but, it was 2 minutes. And it did help, that other calming voice. Because then she was talking about it. Not to me, to somebody else. And like I say, now you take something that is far more traumatic, not a one-and-done type thing. I got her to her practice. She's with her friends. She got her mind off it, things like that. I'm sure she'll still be with her a little bit for some time. But then you look at when kids don't have that. They don't have anyone to turn to. They are really worried about their peers, what they might think. I'm sure she really didn't care what that guy thought, but it was just truly scary for her. And she had, a system, fortunately, that would happen to be right there. Me nearby, a friendly man that she bumped into, a friendly cop, and literally her team that, they get through tough times together. She's with her support group right now. It just seems like those are the things that snowball. Or am I making, too big of a deal here? What happened to my kid today? What do you two think?
Well, I think the guy that caused it, I think he's going to have a little bit more of an impact on her than I think you realize, because it was her first accident by the sounds of it. And that's, I mean, we've all had accidents, but I've never encountered something like that in any of my accidents. So for her to have her first, and then on top of that, that kind of a reaction from somebody is just ridiculous. But on the flip side too, she's also going to have that healing there that most people don't really get, and that was just the immediate niceness. Because when you're in an accident, the person that gets hit, they're usually the one that's mad and not so calming. Right. And in her case, she got lucky, and she got somebody who was more understanding, but he probably also saw how that other guy was working. And then the fact that she's got a father that's understanding. Some parents would have probably blew up at her because she got in an accident. And here you were understanding. The cop was understanding. So she has all that going for her, which is good. But I still think there's still going to be some little bit left in her mind with that guy. But then again, I could be wrong because of all the goodness that surrounded it. And if we could have more goodness like that happening to overcome the bad, it makes the bad go away a lot quicker.
I think that's a good way to end things here for the show. We are here to wrap it up, and I want to definitely thank you for not just taking the time, but for sharing your story, because we read about this. We all agree it's a bad thing. We'll see it on TV. It's really hard to get engaged. I want to thank, again, the two of you for helping me to get engaged with this, because it makes me a better father as well. So thank you very much. And again, I just really appreciate being able to be part of the show and sharing this with us. So I hope you two have a very good evening.
Yeah, thank you.